The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Leela Rhodes and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are very excited to host today's webinar, Microsoft 365 Masterclass, and presenting today's topic is Brent Dawson. Brent is a driven Microsoft trainer with over 20 years of experience. Brent is also a Microsoft Dynamics architect out of London, UK. He has delivered comprehensive Microsoft infrastructure and security training, giving students the tools they need to build, maintain, and secure their Microsoft network infrastructure. Please bear in mind that this is still just an overview of a very robust topic, and we do offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored towards your specific requirements. If you're interested in a further discussion about any of those, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at www.netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you will get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adopting change, and driving growth. And we do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans and our global delivery capabilities. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. We have 9 practice areas in which we specialize, and they encompass people, process, and technology training. Today's presentation is from the business application practice area. Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio for business application courses, and our upcoming classes include various trainings on MS 900, MD 100, MS 203, and more. And private training to teams is also available, and those learning plans can also be customized to the specific needs of that audience. You can also access a variety of business application marketing assets, such as the free 2-hour training, by clicking on the available webinar handout. And these offerings can also be found with a simple search on our website, www.netcomlearning.com. In this masterclass, the attendees will get an introduction to the cloud concepts, Microsoft 365 productivity, and teamwork solutions, Microsoft 365 business capabilities, and much more. Now, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started today. To start with, you will have the option to adjust your window size to your liking. You can simply hit the escape key and find the Zoom button on the top left corner of your GoToWebinar viewer. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters, but you can feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters in the questions panel, and we will address them at the end of the session today. Also, to get the best out of today's webinar, we've included the slides, courses we've talked about, and marketing assets in the handout section of your GoToWebinar viewer, and you can refer to those to get a better understanding of the topic. And now I am going to go ahead and pass the time over to Brent to present today's topic. Brent, you should be able to share your screen now. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday and joining us.
Thank you very much. I think you should be able to see it now.
I can.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, good morning, good day. As was mentioned, I'm in London, England, so it's middle of the afternoon for me. And yeah, so I've had my daily coffee, so let's jump right into this. So Microsoft 365 is a really large sort of platform that is used by a lot of individuals to do a lot of different things. So it's made up of business applications, which include, from the Microsoft point of view, include things like the Dynamics platform, so finance and operations, customer engagements, field services, those sorts of things. Plus, it also includes the Microsoft Office stack, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all those sorts of things, and also an additional layer of other tools that are provided through the Azure stack that include things like security, end-user device management, any of those sorts of types of tools. that are also available, for organizations that are running large scale developments, large scale implementations, but also much smaller scale implementations as well. All right, so we're going to break this down into to 3 sections. The first one is going to be dealing with sort of the high level of what a cloud is and sort of the idea behind cloud concepts. Then we're going to look at some of the productivity and teamwork features that Office and Microsoft has, as well as some of the business management capabilities. And then there'll be a spot at the end of the session that you can throw some questions in and try and get them answered for you. So first and foremost, what is the cloud? Okay, so we're going to take a look at sort of the idea of what cloud computing is, what exactly is Microsoft 365, and what is the type of cloud computing that we have. So cloud computing is the idea that you're moving away from traditional business methodologies and mentalities of having data centers and implementations of hardware and software at your local facility that everybody either locally connects to or remote connects to from their desktop to a server to be able to do some sort of computing. So generally speaking, that includes things like having an operating system on a desktop, Microsoft Office installed on a desktop. In the server room, you would have, Windows Server. You would have things like Exchange Server, SQL Server, maybe Microsoft Communications software, that sort of thing, as a way to manage and run your business. What we're doing now is we're moving all of that technology and those tools from an on-premise deployment to a cloud-based deployment and running in the Azure platform from Microsoft. The 3 things that are kind of the driving forces behind why we would go to a cloud deployment versus an on-premise deployment is, first of all, cost. Now, when you go out and you buy all of this equipment and all this hardware and all this other sorts of stuff, there's capital expenditures that you need to complete to get that equipment in place. And that includes, as we mentioned, so it'd be racks, computers, storage, cooling, heating, fire suppression, physical security, those sorts of things. So there is an upfront cost that's associated with all of this sort of on-prem implementation of equipment. If we go to a cloud-based implementation, we're eliminating that capital expense of all of that upfront expense, the cost of the hardware, the cost of the software, what it would take to set it all up, to actually make sure that the data center that you're having is running properly, and moving all of that infrastructure to a more managed environment that is managed by a service provider, in this case, Microsoft. When you have, as I say, when you have all of that stuff locally, it does add up quickly. It doesn't take long before all of that cost is quite large. So by moving to a cloud-based environment, you're moving from an infrastructure that you have to manage, the data centers, the racks, the electricity, the power, the cooling, all that sort of stuff, to an infrastructure that is managed by a third party who has a service level agreement with you that says, we guarantee that this will be up for 99.99% of the time. And so you're now taking your costs out of your capital expenditures and you're moving them to an operational expenditure, which, if you look at it over time, may equal out, but over the length of time that the cost is incurred extends. And so you no longer have to have this upfront cost that's going to, have, potential to bite into the cost of the organizations. The second reason why we would want to move to a cloud computing environment from an on-prem one is speed. Hardware has a limited lifespan. Networks have a limited lifespan. And so if you're used to having, newer and up-to-date equipment, whether it's server equipment or networking equipment and so forth, again, the cost adds up. And over time, those pieces of equipment will slow down. It's just a fact of life. If we move to a cloud-based computing environment, we don't have to worry about the networking. The only networking that we really need to worry about in an organization is the speed of our internet connection going out to the cloud. That's it. And so in most cases, in an organization that basically lifts and shifts all of their computing from on-prem to cloud-prem, The only thing that you need to do from a networking point of view locally is have your internet connection set up and have your firewall connected so that you can have your internal network in your organization all set up, and then everybody can get out to the internet and be able to access this resource. The other advantage, of course, is that you don't have to have anybody at work. You can send them all home. They can do their job from home remotely. As long as they have fast internet where they live, then they'll be able to connect to those resources as well. And the scale of your implementation. Again, if you're looking at an on-prem deployment, you're restricted to the amount of space and money that you have to implement an environment and a system. Or if you're going to a cloud-based system, it basically means if you want to spend more money, you can get resources. You can get more computing power, you can get more storage, you can get, move things around to different geographical locations and regions based on, where the company is existing and where the users are and that sort of thing. And so, again, you're spreading the cost out, but you're also increasing the scalability of your environment and the deployment that you have, because those resources are readily available and you don't have to wait for, the shipping truck to show up and testing to make sure the RAM works and all that sort of fun stuff that would go with it. So those are the top 3 benefits of why we would move from an on-prem to a cloud-based component. There are some other ones, including what the productivity is, right? So again, on-site data centers, there's a lot of as what they refer to as racking and stacking, right? So you need IT team members to go in and facilitate putting stuff into place, turning it on, testing it to make sure it actually works properly. Then there's all the infrastructure maintenance that goes with it. There's the patching of the firmware, there's software patching, and there's other types of things that you have to manage, backups, all that sort of fun stuff. In the cloud, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. The IT teams that you have that specialize in hardware and networking and that sort of thing now take out of their daily job the mundane stuff that they would have to do. And now they get to do the important things, some of the new stuff, like playing with the new tools or trying out new technologies, those sorts of things, and keeping the IT staff busy, but in a different way, and having them sort of be more interested in some of the daily data jobs that they do. Performance, of course, this is a huge one. Cloud computing gives you a worldwide network of different data centers that are secured and upgraded with the latest technologies and hardware and that sort of stuff. So by using cloud-based implementations, you get much better performance out of your environment, out of the applications you're trying to use, at a much cheaper cost than what you would have to pay if you were doing it all yourself internally. It's much more reliable. Chances are you will never have an outage of a cloud-based component, with the exception of maybe losing your internet connection. But as far as the tool itself in the cloud, because of the way that the redundancy and data recovery and business continuity is built into the cloud environments themselves, it's much more likely that any type of outage that would potentially occur at a data center would not have any impact or very little impact on your organization. And then lastly is security. There are a number of different ways of setting up security policies and different technologies, access controls, that sort of stuff. When you're running from the cloud, because of the fact that they have to guarantee that your data is secure, there is the best in the world types of hardware, software, and implementation personnel that are going to secure not only your information, the infrastructure that it's running on, the apps that you're using, the data that you store, as a way to make sure that everything is not going to have any possible threats associated to it. Because the last thing they want is a reputation of saying, oh, well, somebody got in and stole all my data from Azure, so it's not secure, so people won't pay for it. So Microsoft 365 is the Microsoft subscription service that includes all of the collaborative software, which has all of the up-to-date features, and they work with all of the standard Microsoft products. Generally, the Office desktop apps that are there, like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Teams, those sorts of things, are all cloud-based and could be all executed from a web browser. There's very little requirement now where you would need to actually have stuff locally installed on your desktop, and you'd be able to work worldwide. and then be able to access the same resources as if you were locally sitting at your desktop. So Microsoft 365 is generally used for anybody. Now, if you have a corporate account, then you would use Microsoft 365 productivity tools for things, as I mentioned, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and so forth, but also for things like device management, advanced security, connected experiences, cloud service implementations, those sorts of things, where you would be able to take advantage of the best stuff that Microsoft has. Unlike on a desktop deployment, as I said, everything can be run in a browser. It is browser agnostic. It doesn't require that you have to use Microsoft Edge. You can use Chrome or Safari or any other tool, so long as you have a standard and stable internet connection. And the other advantage of using Microsoft 365 is that it's constantly evolving. So unlike when you would have Microsoft Office 2010 installed on your desktop, which has an end of life, now if you go through a cloud implementation, you're going to get the Microsoft 365 version of Office, which allows you to make sure that you're always going to be using the newest and the best release features. All the bug fixes will be there. All of the new features and the updated features will be there. There's no requirement for you to have to go out and do a major upgrade of software and redeployment within any of the devices in your organization. We're actually getting to the point now where we're almost at the PC not having to be a part of your environment. You could use any type of device to be able to communicate and work in the cloud. So the types of cloud computing that we need to understand, there are 3 different types of ways that we can deploy cloud services in the world. 2 of which are publicly accessible, and then the third one is sort of an internal one. The first one is obviously the public cloud. An example, obviously Microsoft Azure is a public cloud. And public clouds are owned and operated by a service provider, i.e. in this case, Microsoft. And they deliver all of these resources over the internet. So it's storage, software applications, server management, networking, all that stuff is done over the internet. And as I said before, with the public cloud, all the hardware, all the software, all that supporting infrastructure is managed by the cloud provider. Now, there are certain types of things in that cloud infrastructure that you will have to manage, such as a specific application, specific storage of information around that application, security about who can access that application, that sort of stuff. But the underlying technology that application has to sit on is all managed by Microsoft. A private cloud is the same concept as a public cloud, but the resources are exclusively used by a single business or organization. And they are physically located at your company's data center. So really, a private cloud is really no different than just having a normal network in your organization. The only reason that you would use a private cloud implementation is so that it is a way for you to kind of use the cloud's service capability for automation and those sorts of things, but hosted internally. And generally speaking, private cloud implementations have at least double the cost of a public cloud purchase. And so if you really have the money and you want to maintain it, go for it. But generally speaking, private clouds are almost a thing of the past at this point. Hybrid clouds, this is a combination of public and private clouds, more likely a public cloud and a private data center where you're sharing data and application information between the two. What this does is give you greater flexibility and the capability of being able to share information between your cloud-based implementation and your on-premise implementation as well. And it gives you the capability to exist both in the cloud so that when you're away from the office, you have the ability to implement and access your software and your tools and your data, but also keeps track of it internally so that when you're at the office and you're at your desk, you get the same access to all of those resources as well. And it helps to increase things like security and compliance and accessibility and so forth. So the types of cloud services, there are several different services, but the ones that are primarily used are part of what are called the computing stack. And the reason why they're called a stack is because they tend to build on top of each other. And the lowest level one, or the most basic one, is called Infrastructure as a Service, or IaaS. And in this one, you basically are renting machine space, right? So you're renting the servers, the virtual environments, the storage, networking, operating systems, and it's as a pay-as-you-go basis. So with an infrastructure as a service implementation, you still have to build the virtual machines. You still have to install the software. You still have to install the users or manage the users. You also need to make sure that the storage of the data is secure and all that sort of stuff. So basically, it's really no different than having a data center on-prem. It's just that you're now doing it in a hosted environment as a pay-as-you-go service. The next one up from that is platform as a service. And platform as a service refers to when you have on-demand environments. And generally, it's going to be used for things like development, testing, and managing software applications. You would rarely ever use platform as a service as a production environment that you would deploy. And it's there for you to quickly create different types of applications. You don't have to worry about underlying infrastructure, servers and storage and all that sort of stuff, because you're just using environments that are provided for you. This speeds up the process of development, which also then speeds up the process of testing and then ultimately being able to deploy that application into production environment. Serverless computing is sort of the next layer, but it overlaps with platform as a service. This is for when you're doing serverless architectures such as web-hosted environments. So like, web servers, that sort of stuff. Any sort of web application that doesn't need an underlying server technology is going to be done as a serverless computing environment. And lastly, is software as a service. Software as a service is sort of the highest level, and it builds on all of the other three topologies. In this case, really everything is managed by Microsoft. The only thing you have to worry about at this point is the actual software application, and even potentially not even that, but just the availability of that tool, who gets access to it, and the data that you're going to be entering into it. So as an example, Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations is a software as a service. Microsoft manages the implementation of the hardware, they manage the software. You, as the customer, only have to worry about the users that need to have access, the type of access that they get in the system, and then of course the data that you enter into it, and then how you're going to be storing that data. So there's very little of the management side that is responsible by the customer. That is all done by the hoster. It's just the very little bit at the very top where it has to do with access and storage of data that is responsible by the customer. So what are the uses of cloud computing? So we're probably going to have cloud computing in your environment right now, and you're not even really aware of it as a normal end user that you're using it. So chances are you're using things like email, right? You may be using Exchange Online, and your users don't know it. If you use something like Outlook.com, that is a cloud-hosted environment, right? It's an online service that you are connecting to through a web browser. You may be editing documents, anything that you watch on TV, any type of streaming that you do through things like YouTube or maybe like in England we have BBC iPlayer, which is the streaming side, or CBS or NBC or any of those sorts of broadcasters. They quite often will stream television programs across the web, and again, that's an online service. Things like Spotify or Amazon Music, a lot of the video games people play nowadays. Fortnite is the most popular one that I can think of. These are all cloud-based environments. If you have Microsoft, OneDrive or Google Drive or Amazon photo storage or any of those sorts of things, when you take a picture with your cell phone or on your tablet, it automatically replicates that up to a cloud storage location. And a lot of times people don't even realize that that's what they're doing, but it's exactly what they're doing. And so the average person, I think, doesn't really care that they're using cloud-based applications and cloud computing. But if their cell phone dies and they want to make sure that they have all their pictures, because the average person doesn't know how to do a backup of their cell phone, guess what? It's there. When they bring their new phone in, they get it hooked to back up, and it's like, hey, wait a second, there's all my pictures. They get downloaded back to your device and you pick up as if nothing's ever happened. Cloud computing services really aren't that old. They're only about, maybe 10, 15 years old. But the amount of organizations and users and whatever else that are using these now standard tools is incredible. I originally am from Canada, and I come from oil country, where you would have the CEO of an oil company would go down to the server room and say, I want to see the servers that I just paid for. And they'd be able to walk into the server room. The server admin could go, okay, there's the rack of servers that you paid for, blah, blah, blah. Now, if the CEO goes downstairs and says, I want to see all the servers I paid for, they'll open up a web browser and show them a virtualized scan of what their network looks like and say, there you go. And so, a lot of these new technologies, a lot of things, including governments and stuff, are now going to cloud technologies, A, because they've proven that they work, but B, because they're more cost effective and they're more efficient in terms of how the end users can work with them. Some examples that are listed here of some of the cloud systems that are there. Create cloud native applications. And so these are using things like container technologies such as Kubernetes, microservices architecture, DevOps. But the whole point is for building, deploying, and scaling applications quickly and getting them out to the users. Testing and building applications. Again, at one point in time, if you were a developer and you were writing a piece of software for Microsoft Windows, you would have to have 2 or 3 or 4 physical computers at your desk with different versions of operating system and different versions of memory, 64-bit, 32-bit implementations where you could test the code that you wrote across all of these devices so that you could see if it's going to work. Then over time, things like VMware and Microsoft Hyper-V came along, and so you didn't have to have 5 or 6 physical computers under your desk with a KVM switch to be able to access them all. Now you can get one, really monster computer with a whole bunch of CPU and memory and storage, and run virtual machines that you would be able to do as well. But again, you still had to install it in all those virtual machines. You still had to test the code against all of them, and it was time consuming. Now, if we use cloud-based implementation, it takes a lot less time to do the implementation and development and the testing to actually build those applications that we can then deploy to a cloud implementation rather than having to install it locally. Obviously, the storage, backup, and recovery of data, it's more cost effective. It allows you to store much larger pieces of information over the internet to your offsite cloud storage system rather than having tapes and hard drives and racks and racks and racks of hard drive space to be able to store all of your data. Now we can efficiently store it in the cloud and just pay for the consumption that we're going to be using. The next thing is obviously data analysis, right? So one of the things that we can do with a lot of the technologies that we have now is analyze the data that we are going to be working with. So in quote unquote olden days, what we would have to do is that we would need to take a look at the different data that we have. We would have to put it into large data warehouses. We may have to break it off into smaller chunks called cubes or data marts. And then we would be able to do data analysis. So we would spark up Excel spreadsheets, or we would pull up other types of technologies where we would be able to analyze the data and take a look at that data and see what the data is doing. We can predict sales forecasts for things such as, how many people are buying X widget. Should I increase my production of T-shirts that have the Microsoft logo on them? Things like that, so they can see how things are going. Now that we've moved stuff to the cloud, we have the capability of things like machine learning and artificial intelligence that will help do a much better job of uncovering and discovering insights to make better decisions. So if you think about your favorite web store that starts with an A, when you log onto it in the morning and you go to say, I'm going to go search for, as an example, I just recently bought a green screen. I haven't put it up yet, but so I go in and I do a search for green screen, and then I do a look and I find the ones that I want and say, oh, okay, I like this price, I like this style, blah blah blah. If you don't buy it, you just put it in your favorites. The next time you log into the website, it goes and it gives you a list of other options for green screens. So even though you've saved that one, it says, well, there's other ones that are kind of sort of like what you like, and maybe there's one of those ones that you prefer instead. And so it'll give you, a list of other types of screens by shape, by size, by price, by color, whatever. But it's using machine learning and artificial intelligence capabilities to look at your buying habits and make predictions as to what it thinks you might be interested in buying. Along the same lines as what things like YouTube does. Have you ever, and I do this all the time, and it makes me laugh when I think about it, but have you ever sat down and looked at, let's say you watched a YouTube video, your favorite music video, and at the bottom, it gives you a list of, other videos, right? And then, so the next video you go to, so you watch a video, now I'm old, so let's say you watch a video by the Police, right? Every move you make, so you watch that video. And then the next video, it says, oh, well, there's another Police video that you might like. So you watch that Police video. And then as you start watching them, you'll notice that the things it tries to change you to are different. So, maybe you watch the Police, and then the Police did a thing in England. We have this for Amnesty International called the Secret Policeman's Ball. And it's all sorts of famous comedians and that donate their time, and they have a big comedy show and they raise money for Amnesty International. And the Police were one of the bands that performed at it. So one of the next things that it brings back for you is it's like, oh, well, there's the Secret Policeman's Ball. Well, that wasn't what I originally intended on looking for. I was just looking for music videos by the Police. So now I start listening to the Secret Policeman's Ball, and I find it really funny. And then I go and I search for another one, because there's 5 or 6 or 7 of them. And then over time, it's like, oh, well, if you like that, maybe you'll like Lewis Black. So then it'll bring up, suggestions for Lewis Black. And you watch that, you think, oh, that's really funny. And now you've gone from watching music videos to watching comedy shows to potentially watching documentaries or whatever else, because it's using this machine learning to watch what it is that you're searching for and have a better job of coming up with potential solutions or potential suggestions that you should be using and watching and being able to to do that. So I refer to it as going down the rabbit hole, and I can waste hours, like literally hours, by just sitting there and watching YouTube and going, oh, this is interesting, oh, this is interesting, this is cool, and never really ever accomplished much. There have been days that I've started work at 9 o'clock in the morning, and the next thing I know, it's 3 in the afternoon, and I'm still watching YouTube videos. Hopefully they're related to work, but not necessarily always. Streaming of audio and video, I mean, as I said, the things like YouTube and Amazon Music and Spotify, all those sorts of things. Embedded intelligence, so this is for ways to communicate with customers. So these would be things like chatbots and those sorts of things that you would utilize to interact with users before they have to talk to a real person. Sometimes that's really, that's an advantage, because that embedded intelligence can help you solve a problem prior to you having to talk to a person. But depending upon what the problem is, that technology isn't going to solve it. So you'd rather just talk to a person, but you have to go through the process as well. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's annoying, but in the end it evens out. And then lastly, deliver software and demand tools. So these are the latest versions and updates that are available to customers. So as I mentioned, things like Dynamics 365, even the Office suite online is a software as a service. You don't have to actually do anything to administer it. You just use it, right? So those are some examples of some of the advantages and features of using cloud-based applications. All right, so the next section we want to look at is productivity and teamwork capabilities. With the advent of COVID, or since COVID has come around, really, one of the things that everybody has done, pardon me, is started to work from home, right? And so there are now disconnected teams that are working to, still trying to accomplish tasks, are still trying to get the job done, but no longer have the ability to get up out of their chair, walk over to the person and have a conversation with them. Now we have to use things like Teams and Yammer and collaboration tools like Word, Excel, and SharePoint to be able to do the same sorts of things as well. Now, at first, that had a negative impact on productivity because unless you were used to working from home, it was a really difficult thing to get used to. In my personal career, I've worked from home for the better part of 15 years. So I'm quite used to working from home. But if you're a person who has a job where you're engaging the public a lot, and then you now had to go from working in a data center or working in an office to working from home, it's a big jump. So the whole culture of work has changed, and in that, Microsoft has tried to come up with ways to help improve not only efficiency but productivity and communications capabilities. We still want to feel like we're part of a team. We still need to feel like we're part of a team. As human beings, we still need to have that interaction. Sometimes that interaction is electronic. Sometimes that interaction is in person. I actually prefer in person some of the times just because I like to talk to people. But we need to have ways to be able to improve personal productivity and have the systems allow individuals to still be productive away from their normal office space. So some of the ways that we can improve personal productivity obviously is to still have engaged employees. And by doing that, by giving them tools to stay engaged, so things like video conferences and online meetings and those sorts of things. Obviously, the capability to do instant messaging. I live in instant message. Since I moved to the UK, I don't think I've used my cell phone as a phone less in my entire lifetime than since I started buying them in the 90s. Like I spend most of my time doing WhatsApp or Teams meetings or whatever. I very rarely ever actually talk on the phone. It's incredible when you think about it. And I think a lot of people are in that same boat. They may have voice conversations, but it's through a tool like Microsoft Teams or any of those sorts of things that they would communicate with. Obviously, the capability to host online meetings, that's a big one. Everybody now, can you hear me? How do I sound? Oh, sorry, Brent, you're on mute. I can't hear you talking. That stuff's never going to go away. And, at this point, people have made lots of money off writing T-shirts. And I actually have a T-shirt that says, sorry, you're on mute. I can't hear you. And so, that's kind of a running joke in our organization. But the big advantage, of course, of this improving your personal productivity is the ability to be productive from anywhere. I could be productive from anywhere. As I said, I live in London. I could be in Berlin. I could be laying on a beach in the British Virgin Islands or Barbados, and I could still be productive as long as I have internet access and and it's stable. I can work from anywhere. I don't have to be in an office. And so a lot of organizations are slowly going to that route where you might be in the office a couple of days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday type of thing, and then you work from home Mondays and Fridays, or whatever it is that you decide to do, but it helps to still keep you and your employees productive. So how do we engage people? Engaging people is important because it allows us to still, again, as I said, feel like you're part of a team and still be able to have the ability to be, have the advantage of working with other people and producing stuff that you would normally produce if you were in person. So the types of things, the ways that we use to engage employees, obviously communications. So this is things like announcements and events and news and that sort of stuff. Company resources, so company portals, and workplace service applications for things such as IT management, legal services, compliance, pays, and that sort of thing. Application insights, doing application analytics, surveys, feedback, sentiments. Although, to be honest, the whole survey and feedback thing can go a bit far. In the organization that I work in, every time we have a meeting, there's a survey that's sent out right away. I spend half of my life, it seems, filling out surveys, and it drives me nuts. So you can overdo this whole survey part as well. Knowledge capabilities, so knowledge enhancement, so document creation, content projects, having experts available, having people available for advice, that sort of thing. Setting up, virtualized communities, including, team cohesion, helps interesting in groups, helps with diversity and inclusion. Now with Microsoft's, online meta type of thing, where you have, basically you're living in Minecraft, as I refer to it. You have now virtual spaces where you have these virtual communities that you can be part of. You can help with well-being, both physical, mental, and emotional well-being, and financial well-being. I mean, the physical and mental and emotional impact that COVID has had on the average person in this planet has probably set them back 5 or so years in terms of physical stimulation and ability to learn new things and so forth. Being around your mates and potentially if you have children and all that sort of stuff 24/7, 365, gets to a person. One of the advantages of having a job when you're married is that you go away, you work on your job, you come home, and you're not around each other 24/7. So the well-being of people was a huge part. It's not only just the productivity piece, but a huge part of making sure that people could actually still survive in a COVID world. And then lastly is growth and development. So this is things like learning and coaching, doing online recruiting, online onboarding, those sorts of things. Like the last 2 companies that I've worked for, I did not meet anybody in my organization when I was hired. Before I moved to the UK, I worked with a company in Canada that got me to the UK. I never met any of them in person. I never met my boss, the HR lady, none of them. It was all done virtually. It was all done over video conferences and whatnot. And I never did meet any of them in person before I left. And then the company I work at now, same thing. I did everything online. It was all done by video conference and whatnot. Now, we've obviously opened up in the UK, and so I've met my boss and a few other of my coworkers, but I still haven't met everybody. And, so we're actually planning a little mini convention now that everything is open in early May so that I could actually physically meet some of my coworkers that I've not met before. So, the ability to do a lot of that stuff online is what is also making sure that organizations are being productive as well. So one of the things that we have the advantage of in Microsoft is obviously in Teams, being able to do one-on-one chats, group chats. This is a nice way to eliminate email clutter, right? So quite often you'll see that people will complain and say, oh, that was a meeting that could have been done as an email. And that's quite true. And a lot of times, if I could just pick up the phone or have a 30-second conversation with somebody, it prevents me from having to send the email back and forth. Because even when I have the voice conversation with an individual, it does, I can express emotion and context and stuff that, email messages don't allow you to do. Quite often when you're trying to be funny, and if you have a sarcastic sense of humor like I do, the person may not understand the sarcasm and take offense to it because it's written down and there's no context. Whereas if I have a phone call with somebody, they can tell by the tone of my voice I'm being a jerk and I'm just trying to be funny. And so they can take it a different way. But this helps to encourage discussion. It helps to make sure that all of your messaging is real time, but it also allows you to prevent interruption of your work, right? Now, There's a bit of a culture behind it. So if you look at if you go into the Teams chat list and you see that somebody is set to busy, there's a reason why they're set to busy. But quite often people will still phone them anyways, right? So so there is a bit of etiquette that needs to be used around that sort of concept as well. But it allows you to chat basically from anywhere. You can share screens, you can do all the collaboration stuff, and it just overall makes people that much more efficient and connected to each other so that they can actually still accomplish things. We can host online meetings with teams. So they have the meeting lifecycle. There's the live events. You can do audio conferencing. You can do meeting devices, specific to like desktop devices and stuff. With Teams, there are two features that are really useful that I find incredibly useful because I deal with people from all the way from Ireland through Germany and Poland and Ukraine. Is the transcription capabilities in Teams. So as part of a recording, it's always nice to get the recording and be able to go back and listen to it. But now with the transcription capability, I can actually get a printout transcription of the meeting. And so I can then use that to go back and find information rather than having to go back and watch an entire video. So it makes it a lot easier. I could convert it to OCR it and then search the text, that sort of stuff. The other capability, which is really useful, and I use it a lot, is the closed captioning feature. So if I'm having a meeting with somebody that is, let's say, in the Czech Republic, in Slovakia, then what I would do is that I will change the closed caption language to Czech. And then as I'm talking, the software will convert my English to Czech, and the people on that end will be able to read the closed captions if they don't completely understand my accent and whatnot, and still be able to keep up with the Teams meeting. So it's really cool that way, and that's a lot of the sort of the idea of sort of the online hosted stuff that Teams does give you. You can explore email. Obviously, there's all the calendaring features. You can still stay connected with everybody from your cell phone device or your tablet or your laptop or whatever. You can customize the way your email is handled. You can also remotely manage the device that the email is being read from, so that if you lose the device, you can block the email from being read, or you can wipe the device, or that sort of stuff. It allows for simplified admin, so you don't have to worry about complicated administration. And again, it's very easy and easy to set up and get people connected to the environments. Again, you can explore Office capabilities because all of these are part of the Office suite. You can use a number of different types of devices. Everything is always up to date because you're live connected, right? So it's going to be using push technology. So as things like new Teams meetings, new email messages, any of that stuff show up, those will get pushed to your device and you'll get a push notification that something is there, right? So you're always up to date. Now, that could be a good thing, that could be a bad thing. You have to get used to being able to turn your brain off when certain things happen. I know in Europe, as an example, it's against the law in many European countries to send work emails outside of work hours, so evenings and weekends. It's also I believe in Germany, that it's law that when you go on a holiday, you actually have to disable your email. So it's actually physically against the law for somebody to try and get you to do work things while you're on annual leave. And so I actually personally quite like that. When I go on holidays now, I turn my email off. I take it off my cell phone, and I don't look at it. When I go away for 2 weeks, I go away for 2 weeks. Things will get handled when I get back to work, and I appreciate that. It also allows you to work intelligently because, again, the tools and technologies are there, and you get to configure how you are notified across those devices so that it best suits the way that you work and makes you more efficient that way. There are obviously capabilities for file storage and file sharing in Dynamics or in Microsoft 365. Sorry, I live in Dynamics, so I always say that. But in terms of this file storage, again, using OneDrive or OneDrive for Business, we can store and access the files anywhere in the world. It works seamlessly with all of the Microsoft 365 tools and comes pre-installed with Windows, right? So there is slight differences between OneDrive Personal and OneDrive for Business. OneDrive Personal is literally a file storage location that is hosted on the Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Azure platform. OneDrive for Business is actually a SharePoint implementation. And so it uses a SharePoint library to store your documents there. But ultimately, once you install Windows and you put in the username and password for whichever type of OneDrive you have, you'll have seamless integration between your desktop and those cloud-based storage locations. You also have the capability on your cell phone, whether it's an Android or an iPhone, to install OneDrive, the app, and then you'll be able to do exactly the same thing. So as you take pictures, you can store and replicate the pictures from your cell phone to your OneDrive photo gallery and still have everything there saved as well. It also allows for collaboration because you can share your OneDrive or your SharePoint location to other people, and they would be able to do things like make editing changes or upload files, read comments, change comments, that sort of stuff within the collaboration field. And also it's secure, right? So because it's stored in the cloud, because there's layers of security there, besides what your device has, you can guarantee that it's very unlikely that you'll ever have to worry about people breaching the security and being able to access the resources. Generally, the only way that will happen is if somebody shares a password to a shared resource that they shouldn't have, and somebody nefarious gets in there and does things that they shouldn't be doing. But generally speaking, from a systems point of view, it's quite secure. All right, so I think let's take our break, Leela. So let's take what we got here, 6 minutes, 7 minutes. That takes us to the top of the hour, and then we'll come back and we'll continue on with the second half of the presentation.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. So while we are taking that break, we want to just take a quick moment and launch a quick poll to see how many people might be interested in some additional training. Brent, how long did you say you wanted for that break? I missed that. Okay, he must have already stepped off. So we'll be back soon. Okay, we're right at 6 minutes. Are you back, Brent?
I'm still here.
Wonderful. We will get right back to it.
I need you to close the poll. There we go. Thank you.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay. Can you see my screen still?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. All right, carry on then. So the next thing we want to look at is the investment. Some of the investments that Microsoft has made into accessibility are important because the two big ones are learning and mental health, as we talked about before. But they also have done investments in vision application, hearing improvements, things like neurodiversity, and mobility as well. So all of the tools that Microsoft provides in the Microsoft stack have all had some sort of accessibility improvements and enhancements made, so that the people who have some sort of disability have the same capabilities and access to resources as those that are not in that category. So the standard Microsoft apps that we have include Teams, Microsoft Excel, OneDrive, Word, Outlook, and PowerPoint. There are some other tools, Microsoft Access if you have the Microsoft Professional version of Office installed, but these are the 6 basic tools that the majority of individual people will use. And we also have other connected experiences as well. And these are ways that we can look at and analyze content, and how we can use content to provide things such as editing, data insights, similar features and stuff, and experiences in that download online content. So things like templates, images, and so on. When you go into things like PowerPoint and you go to create a new PowerPoint presentation, on the right-hand side, as you start adding things like graphics and text and stuff like that, it will make suggestions in terms of the types of templates or the layouts that you should use to best reflect the type of information that you're trying to present and convey to the user. As far as the methods that Microsoft uses for handling and deploying 365 apps, most of the applications, if you're going to install locally, use what's called click to run, where when you log into the portal that you have for your deployment or for your Office subscription, there'll be a deployment or a install button. And when you click that, what it does is it downloads a really small application, a couple of 100 megabytes, that is going to initiate the installation. And so in that little application, you'll specify the folder you want to put it in, the drive letter, all that sort of thing. And then it'll connect to the internet and download most of the source content to install locally on your computer. If you're on a standalone system, obviously you are the administrator, so you have full access to do that. Otherwise, in a network and corporate environment, there has to be a security policy configured that will allow for an individual to be able to install something on their desktop. You can also deploy apps from the local source. So you can download the installer, which will be somewhere in the range of about 100 gigabytes, maybe something like that, where it will go and download the entire file. You'll load it as an ISO file, and then you'll do the installation. And then also, if you're doing configuration editors or configuration manager, something like System Center Configuration Manager or Microsoft Intune, you can create an install package with those tools as well. OneDrive, as I mentioned before, OneDrive is standard across all of these Office implementations, and it comes as a standard install with Microsoft Windows. It's just a matter of going in and enabling the Windows features so that you can have all of the components available. And basically, once you've installed it and made the connection on your computer or your cell phone device, you'll be able to access that resource anywhere. In SharePoint, basically, SharePoint is like OneDrive, except it's more geared towards corporate environments. And so you can install data, you can put other third-party apps in there, and so forth. But it's a way for you to have a collaboration environment where you can share files, store files, you can do co-authoring, and that sort of stuff, where you can put the data into SharePoint and be able to access the resources there. And so those are sort of the standard applications that we have. Now what we need to do is we need to take a look at, from the third point of view, some of the business management features that are available. So first of all, one of the big keys, of course, is to improve organizational productivity. We want to make sure that an organization has simplified management because we want to get the complexities out of it. We want to make sure that we can automate as many business processes as possible. We want to make it have extensibility so we can expand out the environments, have some business intelligence in it, and some work management so that we can make things more efficient. There's no point in putting in a software application that makes life difficult for the users. We want to make life easier for them, make them more efficient. We also want to implement things like workplace analytics to make sure that we can make our workforce effective and have employee engagement and make them feel like they're a part of the team, but also to increase the productivity of the organization. And obviously have secured storage to make sure that everything that we have is secure. And so we can see what our security posture is, both its visibility from both the public and private side, some guidance and control of the suggestions that we can make in security improvements, and then also be able to do benchmarks and testing, generate KPIs that show us, okay, we're working within a set of bounds, a set of norms that are going to be useful. With the simplified management components, we have a number of different tools. Obviously, there's Microsoft Intune, which is our cloud-based mobile device management and mobile application management tool. So we can do application management, OS deployments, software deployments, device compliance, device deletions, that sort of thing. Co-management allows for existence with on-premise tools such as configuration manager with Intune and other 365 cloud services, including security management and enhanced security management. We can do desktop analytics. We have Windows Autopilot, which is a way for us to set up and pre-configure new devices. So things like cell phones and tablets and laptops and those sorts of things. Obviously, Azure Active Directory for our endpoint user management and multi-factor authentication. And then lastly, the Endpoint Admin Center, which is a way for us to create and manage the devices through policies, whether they're managed through Intune or Configuration Manager. It's allowing us to manage and configure those devices. Business process automation, obviously with SharePoint, we have the capability of creating workflows. So a typical workflow in SharePoint would be things like an approval workflow, feedback workflow, signature workflow, approval, publishing workflows, those sorts of things. Or we can also create customized workflows as well. Whether they're single workflows or branched workflows, we can create those in the SharePoint tool. With the Power Platform, we have Power Automate, which is another automation tool which uses the Windows workflow foundations. And it's a way for us to share information and pass information around common applications and services. So as an example, you could set up a Power Automate to send out an email based on a tweet that it records and captures. So there's a number of different types of things you can do with that. And then Power Apps, which is part of the Power Platform as well, which is a suite of apps and services and data platforms that you can use to create model and canvas-driven applications that can be used on mobile devices and whether they're cell phones or tablets as well. There is extensibility in the platforms, meaning that Microsoft Teams, and there are Office add-ins, there are SharePoint add-ins, there's Microsoft Graph. They all work together. So in Teams, as an example, you can go and directly edit a Word document, or you can open an Excel spreadsheet. A lot of the Teams document storage is in SharePoint, and it uses Microsoft Graph as a way to present the information and store and work with electronic data. There is, as I mentioned, forms and workflow management. There's the Microsoft Forms tool where you can actually go in and build your own forms. There's the Dynamics 365 Customer Voice tool, which allows you to use a combination of forms and workflows. And then a new tool called Microsoft Bookings is a calendar management tool that customers and clients can use to create a meeting online and then basically book off time in your calendar without you actually having to go and send a calendar invite. Under the business intelligence rules, there's obviously Microsoft Excel using the Power Pivot, Power Analyze tools, and then Power BI, which is a much more powerful tool to do all sorts of data analytics, data slicing, dashboards, reporting, all sorts of different types of things. Under work management, we have the Microsoft Planner, which includes things like creating planning boards or charts, being able to do schedules as well, and connect to Microsoft 365 groups through Teams. So the planner is sort of a scaled down or scaled back version of a program management, project management tool, but is very useful for individual or small groups of people that need to plan and work together for their job. Some of the benefits of working in this modern management or this modern style of environments is that it is easy to deploy and manage. Most of it is set up for you ahead of time. It's always up to date. You don't actually have to do any of the management software updates yourself. It is intelligent. It has intelligent security built right in, so the firewalls are there to protect you and keep your applicants, your application users safe. And it has proactive insights. So it does have a way for it to go out and help you prevent people from doing things that could potentially cause problems in the organization, whether they're security breaches or using illegal software or any of those sorts of things, as a way to make sure that the users are working in a way that is not going to harm them and the organization. So how do I work with some of this management? There are different methodologies, but from a cloud point of view, there is a tool called Microsoft Intune. And as I mentioned before, this tool is there to focus on mobile device management, as well as mobile application management. From a mobile device management point of view, it's there to configure the devices, to make sure that they have the correct security policies, that they have the correct user applications installed, that they have the capability of being remotely wiped if the device is stolen or lost. And that's all based on device configuration and data protection. But it also does application management. So as an example, if you don't want people to install applications on a corporate handled device, let's say that you give a user a cell phone and you don't want them to install things, you can block them from being able to access things like the the Google Play Store or the iTunes Store for Apple. And that way they will only get the applications that you want them to have on the device. But it's also a way for you to make sure that whatever corporate devices are installed on that application or applications on that device, that they are up to date. So you can set up policies and packages so that as updates and hot fixes and stuff are deployed, that the Intune tool will make sure that the app on all of the devices that it manages has the latest and greatest version, so that they can prevent things like bugs and hacking and that sort of stuff. It also makes life easier because then you're not trying to administer and manage multiple versions of the same application. Everybody's at the same platform, they're all at the same level, they all have the same access, and therefore administration and troubleshooting will be much easier for the tech support team that has to handle it. It also integrates with all of the other 365 tools, including on-premise management tools such as System Center Configuration Manager. It also works with both the Azure Active Directory and on-prem Active Directory implementations for user authentication and things like multi-factor authentication. It's also there to help with Azure information protection to make sure that the data is protected properly. It's encrypted, and therefore people that only have the authority to access it based on user rights through authentication and authorization are able to access that information. And when you do work with the other M365 applications, you basically are allowing the entire workforce to be productive, not only from their desktop, but on any other device, while keeping all of the information protected. So that's the balancing act, is making sure that the data that you want, or that you want to make sure that the data that you have is secure and protected, but that the users still have the ability to access that information in a reasonable way without them being impeded being able to do their daily job. Co-management, as I mentioned prior, is the ability to allow your Windows 10, Windows 11 devices to be managed through Configuration Manager and Intune concurrently, right? So if you have a Microsoft Surface tablet or a Surface laptop or a Surface Book, you can have a Configuration Manager installed on that device because it is still something that you would use on your normal network at your work. And so you would use Configuration Manager to maybe to install the software and get the configuration set up properly. But you can also enroll it in the Intune side of things, so that when they're not at your corporate network, they still are secure. They still have all of the capabilities of being administered and managed by Configuration Manager. And so you have this co-management implementation where you do some of it on-prem, you do some of it in the cloud, just depending upon where the device is connecting from at any given time as to which tool will be used to manage it. So if anything that's going to be done sort of on the on-prem side will be done through the Configuration Manager's agent, which includes things like setting up the policies, client installs, client applications, all that sort of stuff. But as it leaves that and joins through Azure AD, it's then installed and enabled in Intune, and then Intune will take over a lot of those management features because it's cloud-based, and therefore you can do it that way. The autopilot is a feature that allows for zero-touch deployments, and so you would configure up a set of configurations and tools and applications and so forth, where every time you join, you fire up the computer, it automatically joins Active Directory in the Azure cloud or through Azure hybrid connections. And it will then auto roll the device into MDM services, whether it's Intune or any of the other types of tools, and then restrict the administrator account creation so that only anybody that actually has the password for the domain admin can access on those resources, and allows you to customize the content that's specific to the organization. So really, when the device gets turned on, whether it's based on its MAC address from its network card or from its what is it, the ICMEI number from the cell phone, it will then detect it, and it doesn't matter where it joins on the internet, it will know to call home, and it'll call Intune, and Intune goes, oh yes, you belong to this, and then carry on from there. Windows as a Service is a new feature that Microsoft released last year, and it's actually kind of interesting. They got such an interest in it, they actually had to scale back how many people could actually sign up for it. But Windows as a Service is now basically taking over Windows from your desktop. So you could use your Android tablet or your, a Chromebook or something of that nature to connect to a Windows desktop, but it's as a service in the cloud. And it just gives you service benefits, less disruptive, more productive, reduced cost of maintenance, and it does update itself twice a year based on how Microsoft does their patching. There are monthly quality updates as well, so those would be like your Patch Tuesday patches. It does services as Windows as a Service, where you have either the insider preview, the semi-annual channel, or the long-term servicing channel. And it has deployment rings, where you have groups of devices that are basically setting up as a pilot, and then the rest of the applications are deployed. So as an example, you could now buy a blank Windows desktop, a blank Dell desktop or laptop or whatever, join it through a boot facility to a Windows as a Service connection, and then it would do the same thing as it does with Office. It'll install Windows locally, but everything is managed and controlled from the cloud, right? And so if you don't pay your subscription, you lose access to your Windows device, but you would use Windows on your device the same way you would use Office as part of your Office subscription or whatever. It's all pushed from the cloud, and it's all managed from your Azure subscription. So some of the ways that we could get deployments done using Windows Autopilot. So again, using the out-of-the-box experience. And you can also use this with Configuration Manager. You can do in-place upgrades where you actually upgrade a operating system locally without having to do a reinstall. So the idea behind the different versions of Windows is that in-place upgrade. So going from Windows 10 1803 to Windows 10 1809, right? You didn't have to do a complete reinstall. Even going from Windows 10 to Windows 11, you didn't have to do a complete reinstall. You did the features updates, and then you would reboot the computer, and you would have all the new updates. This is along the lines of a web tool called Direct Integration, Continuous Integration, Continuous Improvement, and Continuous Deployment, where you have software features that are being updated on the application. The base underlying features of the application never change. It's just how you're changing and manipulating features. And so you don't no longer have to go out and do a complete reinstall of every application. You just do these continuous deployments, and it will make the changes on the fly. Sometimes you might not even have to reboot a device once the continuous continuous deployment has been completed, and it just continues on from there. You could also do dynamic provisioning from devices such as a USB drive, or using a boot up feature from the network, that sort of thing. And then also subscriptions, so things like the Windows as a service, or purchasing subscriptions where you have to have credentials for things like an E5 license, or Windows 10 Enterprise license, those sorts of things where you have to put the license number in after a certain period of time, otherwise your application doesn't work anymore. The last couple of things we'll take a look at include things like workplace analytics, where we can use data to see how people are currently working in the environments. And so we could see, how internal networks are being used, how are we doing in terms of management and coaching, what type of external collaboration are we using, how well are we using Teams, how much are we using Teams. And these are just metrics that we can use as a way in an organization to determine whether or not people are working to the best of their abilities, and that the systems are allowing people to work really well, and how well they actually allow us to do things. You also have the capability of looking at your own statistics using My Analytics. And this is something that actually, if you're using Outlook and Exchange Online, once a week, you'll actually get an email showing you how productive you were the previous week. So it'll show you things like, how long did you sit at your computer without taking a break? How many quiet days did you have? How many active connections did you have? How many collaboration attempts did you have? And so it's a way for you to see how you work over a period of time, and make sure that you're working efficiently, and that you're collaborating with people that you need to, and that you're actually allowing yourself that capability of being a part of the team, but not really overdoing it, right? I spend a lot of time in meetings, and so my analytics that I get on Monday mornings is really quite bad, because I'm at 136% utilization or something like that. And so I'm constantly in the red all the time. And because of that, our HR department on a very regular basis will be like, how you doing? Are you burnt out? Do you need a holiday? Why are you working so much? That sort of stuff, right? So they're trying to look out for me as well, for my own well-being out of that. Another tool that's quite useful for all of this is the 365 Admin Center. There are several different admin centers for different applications, but the M365 Admin Center is for where the IT managers will manage the organization's subscription. And from here, you'll carry out all of the standard administrative tasks, adding, removing users, resetting passwords, assigning licenses, looking at reports, those sorts of things. And the three main reports that we're going to check out are the productivity report, again, the My Analytics stuff, usage reports to see how people are utilizing resources in the organization, and the security and compliance report, making sure that people aren't getting a hit with malware. Are there being targeted users? What type of threat protection are we have? Is the encryption working well? Those sorts of things are all kind of done and administered through the admin center. And then lastly is the M365 service admin centers. And as I mentioned before, there are several admin centers that for different programs. There's one for security compliance, there's one for SharePoint, there's one for Exchange, there's the Intune one for device management, and then there's a separate one for Teams. But all of the major applications and major platforms that are part of the M365 infrastructure, it does have their own admin centers, because it narrows down the actual content tools that you'll use to manage and administer those particular applications. So that takes us to the end of the slide deck, and kind of all of the stuff that we looked at. There is another thing I would like to just show you quickly, and that is dealing with some of the ways that we can help advance your staff and employees in terms of their knowledge levels and how they can work with the tools that we talked about today. And so one of the advantages of taking a class and sitting in a classroom, whether it's in person or virtualized, is the ability to have an instructor there and also be able to play with hands-on labs. So as an example, if we're looking at the M365 implementation, if we want to do certifications, there's a number of different courses and exams that we can take, anywhere from sort of the introductory stuff like the modern desktop and messaging, all the way through some advanced tools such as support engineer, voice engineering, enterprise engineering, and so forth. And so based on the types of, job that you have, will sort of gear you towards the type of exams that you would need to take to show your credibility in terms of being able to administer those software tools. The other thing that the certification process does is it helps to not only build your own career, because you can say, hey, I've got the certifications and I've done the training and I've got the knowledge to administer these systems, but it also helps with the businesses as well. It makes the business more efficient. It means that the business can implement new technologies and new features and have assurance that not only will their support staff be able to administer and be able to support it, but that your end users will be able to have good experiences with it because it's been implemented properly and it can be utilized correctly. So as you take these role-based training, you get 180-day access to virtual lab environments, and you can go back and redo lab exercises and play in those environments as much as you want to get your skills up to the point where you A, could pass the exam, but B, so you can do things really, really well. There are access to instructor-led course recordings. So if you were to sit in a class, every class has a recording completed, and as part of your portal access, you'll be able to access those recent recordings 365 days after the course is done. There is a learner portal that you have full access to. There are free repeat opportunities for certain types of classes if you feel that you didn't get the opportunity to learn as much as you could have, because I've had situations where people are still at work when they're trying to sit the class and people are annoying them, and so they can't get the focus on it, so they may have to take a reset. And there is 24/7 support as well. So if you are having problems with accessing virtual machines, or the machines are slow or they're not responding, you can get support for that as well. There are several benefits of getting certification. Obviously, you can have greater recognition. It allows you to create what are called the badges, and you can use those badges to promote yourself on things like social media or in things like LinkedIn or other types of tools. They're discoverable, so people can help find you if they're looking for people that want specific skills and certifications for specific jobs and careers. And of course, you only get this if you actually earn it. So if you have this, you're verified that Microsoft has given it to you as an official certification. People can go to the Microsoft site and actually look up to make sure that you have earned that badge and that you're not faking it. And people tend to earn more money. So certified technologists tend to earn anywhere from 10 to 20% more in their salaries. And this was found as a study from Pearson VUE. And it helps to advance your career, makes you more employable, makes you more accessible to other organizations, and ultimately that tends to draw in money. There is an ebook that's provided as part of your subscription. It's part of your portal access, and it's called The Win-Win of Certification. And really what this goes through is it takes a look at how training improves timeliness and business impact, how it can increase your personal and corporate certifications, increases your employability, and the sort of makes you that much more of a standout within your organization. The relationship between continuous learning and pay, and how it can help with productivity, efficiency, and job satisfaction to keep people happy. People don't leave jobs because they don't like the job. They leave the job because they're not happy doing it anymore, or the boss that they work for. And so if you can improve those features, then you'll tend to keep your top-notch employees longer. There's also the Microsoft has implemented over the last year or so this renewal process. And instead of having to go and take the full exam again, 6 months prior to your certification expiry, you'll get notification from Microsoft Learning that you need to upgrade your certification. And so through the Microsoft Learning website, there is a new set of online exams. They're all multiple choice questions. And you have to take that prior to your renewal expiration. If you cannot renew your certification by passing that exam, then you'll have to do the full certification exam again after your certification expires. But you have plenty of time. There's 6 months before your certification expires. It's completely online. It's free. It's open book in some cases, so you don't have to worry about making sure that you have somebody standing over there watching you with prying eyes, making sure you're not cheating or any of that sort of stuff. So, but it is free, and all of the new certifications and current certifications will have those expiry dates, and they expire anywhere from 1 year to 3 years for certain certifications. And that covers certification and training process and the types of things that you'll get out of it. And Leela, I will hand it back over to you. Hello, Leela.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself, but my mouse was not cooperating.
No worries. All yours.
And then I accidentally clicked off the screen, and yeah, so fun. Okay, well, thank you so much for all that information. We know that you just have a vast wealth of knowledge and could probably keep teaching us all day, but unfortunately, we do have a time limit on these things. So we are going to have a question and answer session, but before we do get to our question and answer session, we're going to hear from Julia Kim. She is our vendor manager, and she's going to introduce some promotions and webinar related courses for us. One moment, let me pass those presentation rights over to Julia. Julia, are you with us?
I am here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, it's not in full screen, but
Okay, I'm there.
there we go.
All right. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining our session today with Brent. Is my screen visible? I hope so. I would like to first thank Brent for such an informative session today. I learned so much as well myself. It's a Saturday morning, so I know you may have your usual routines that you want to get back to. So I'll really run down very quickly and short and sweet. So this is our handout that all of the attendees of today's session will receive. This includes some of our information that you may find relevant for your learning journey through our key programs and promotions. So I'll run them down very quickly. Today's session has been recorded, so if you wish to watch the recording to understand things better or to revisit some of the concepts that Brent has discussed today, you can find the link here to watch the recording at your own pace. This session is as part of the overall package. All of the participants for today has been given access to our NetCom 365 learning portal. This is our end-to-end training solutions in the learning industry, and it has been widely used by our corporate clients, government agencies across the board. So we invite you to explore this portal as well. This learning portal will give you access to all of our available classes that we're running. You can check the ongoing classes, some of the GTR schedules, upcoming free webinars and master classes, just like the one that you took today. You get everything from here. So this should be your one-stop and go to learning portal. To access, you just need to follow the simple setting up login password procedure. If you're logging in for the first time, the email is the one that you use to register for today's session. So along with the Microsoft 365 official curriculum that you are getting as part of this master class today, you will be, if you're interested in earning certification, this is also available from this portal. So we highly encourage all of you to please go through and explore more to continue your learning journey. Very quickly, I'd like to take you through some of our other offerings currently running on Microsoft Training Portfolio. First being our Microsoft Skilling program. If you're from a enterprise, have a group of people, you're looking to upskilling on a group level on Microsoft Training solutions across Azure, Dynamics, Microsoft 365, even Power Platform. This entire official Microsoft Training portfolio is available in this Microsoft Skilling offering. So it is our in-house program to support you in these objectives. Get started. I highly encourage you to get started. Give us a call. We can show you a demo. It's a free session with our learning consultant, and we can even discuss, things that are based on your specific needs, your organizational objectives, with respect to Microsoft solutions. We'll prepare a highly optimized and effective scaling plan just customized for you for your deployment in phases. So, and one of the advantage of this program is that it offers the massive discount. It can go up to 80% discount from our standard pricing model. So there's a big price advantage that you can really maximize your training budget. Also, we provide solutions that are allowed for easy enrollment for the learners, track individual progresses, track the deployment status across the multiple locations. So if you'd like to learn more, please give us a call. We'll be more than happy to sit down with you, with a learning consultant, and really have a meaningful conversation for your company. Ebook, it's an official collateral that comes from Microsoft. It's already been shared with all of you, I believe. Microsoft has done some extensive research across their entire massive clients. So you get a lot of the information that are useful for you. Hard facts, statistics provided by the evidence of return on investments with respect to Microsoft trainings, earning certifications, and benefits. You'll get information from both from the employer perspective as well as the employee perspective of those benefits. NetCom Plus is our subscription-based model training resource. These are offered to individuals as well as at group level to help maximize the organization's training budget in order to continue the employee learning journey. It comes with over 500 training classes, including the entire Microsoft portfolio, as well as our key authorized vendors such as AWS, Cisco, CompTIA, AC Council, and more. You get 12 months unlimited access. So it gives you the learning at your own pace. You get the flexibility. It keeps you going all year round. It starts at $29.99 per user per year. But if you're an organization with multiple learners to enroll, obviously you get additional discount that our learning consultants will be more than happy to offer to you. So there's also a learning passport, another successful solution of ours, and this is highly enjoyed by our enterprise customers, where you can park a certain amount of training budget and consume as we go. We also apply a massive discount on this program, so it covers entire NetCom learning portfolio, including the key vendors that I just mentioned, Microsoft, AWS, Cisco, CompTIA, Adobe, you name it, and it is all covered in this learning platform. So this passport is valid for 12 months and can be renewed as they get matured. We're running a promotion around security bundle to help you stay up to date on security technology and get certified. This bundle includes visual instructor course, plus exam vouchers and practice tests. There's a huge discount offer as well. So if you're in the security area, this is one of your interest level, then I highly recommend to take advantage of this promotion going on right now. So As our instructor, Brent has taken you through some of the basic concepts that are mapped to Microsoft 365. We have also listed here other Microsoft 365 courses mapped to role-based to expand your knowledge. So please feel free to go directly from this link or visit our website, netcomlearning.com. We've also listed at the bottom upcoming classes, and we'll welcome you back to take these classes as well to continue your learning journey. So let me quickly talk about our promotions being offered that you can access from our website. So this is our welcome page, Netcom main page. Simply go to promotions here. You can see all of the many promotion offerings that is going on that we're offering right now. So let me just give you a few examples. If you're interested in getting free Microsoft Dynamics 365 or Power Apps training for a group, we can, this is totally complimentary for you. This is private to our customizable session. So go ahead, click here to get more information. And you can download the brochure or click here to get free Dynamics. Simply put in your information, give us your email, and our learning consultant will be in contact with you to give you more information and schedule a session. So this is it from my end. Thank you so much for hearing me. I'd like to make it clear and direct. Hopefully that worked. Back to you, Layla.
Thank you so much. Before you jump off, we do have a question that I think is specific to you. And we have a few people who want to know if there is any sort of certificate or proof of participation that they can get and how they would go about getting that certificate.
So the fastest way that you can go is from our let me just give you that NetCom 365. You get access to NetCom 365 portal. You get to go to the schedule that is for today, and you'll be able to download the certification and print or download the certification from our NetCom 365 portal site.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll go ahead and get to our other questions. So Brent, are you back with us?
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so our first question that I'm seeing today is it possible to import content from other Office systems into Microsoft 365?
Yes, so you can take data that's on-prem or from things like Google or any of the other open source Office suites and import them into OneDrive and then use them in things like Word, Excel, and so forth.
Thank you. And let's see our next question. And once we do get through our questions, I just want to let you all know, once we do get through our questions, we will go ahead and wrap up today's webinar. So if you do have something that you want to ask, go ahead and get that into our question or panel as quickly as possible. Our next question is, can you configure Microsoft 365 to run exclusively via a web browser instead of installing it on a computer?
You don't have to install it. You just have the users point to the link, and once they get to the link, then they'll be able to run the application. But there's no installation process that they need to go through to get web versus on-prem or on-computer implementation. So.
Perfect. Okay,
That
I'm
makes
seeing
sense.
one other question in our queue now. So that question is, how secure are documents stored in Microsoft 365?
Very, very, very secure. Probably more secure than installed locally on your own computer.
Wonderful. Okay, and there is a follow-up, Julia, on the certificates. They're wanting to know how soon they can download those. If there's I know for our playbacks, it's usually 24 hours, but I'm not sure if there's a waiting period on downloading those certificates or not.
I'm back. Yes. So usually 24 to 48 hours. I got my certification the very next day. So I would say maximum 48 hours.
Okay, and that is through the Microsoft 365 portal, or the the Netcom 365 portal.
Correct.
Okay. Then we do have another one. Where do we access the Microsoft official curriculum?
You have to take one of the courses to get the curriculum. You can't just buy it. You have to actually register for you actually have to register for a class to be able to get access to the curriculum.
Okay. Well, with that being said, I think that is all the questions we have. Oh, well, we do have one more that just came in. They're wanting to know where the portal is exactly. Julia, do you think you could take us, or
Sure.
do you think you could take a moment and actually show us visibly how to get to that portal?
Of course. Can I get my share back?
Yes, let me pass that over to you.
Awesome. So I'm in, if my screen is visible.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I'm in the main page of Netcom Learning site. Simply go here, the last section here, Netcom 365. Put in your email that you use to register for this session. It will take you there. It's thinking. Okay, I'm in the site right now. So you will go to your training calendar. I'm sorry, let me go back to the dashboard. You will simply go to the classes that you have completed. It will be listed here. So it hasn't been uploaded for mine here. So if you go to classes and go to completed classes, you'll see today's session listed here. You'll have the option to download the certificate, as you can see right here for me.
Wonderful.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Oh,
yep.
Go ahead. Okay.
No, I was done. So yeah, list of classes here. Simply go to download the certificate here. And then you'll be able to download or print your certificate.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for walking us through that. I know it can be a little confusing sometimes, and
Sure.
and people really want to get their certificates when they participate in the classes.
Of course, yes.
And there is also the handouts that has additional information, the PowerPoints and everything for today's training. And there is a playback of today's training as well. So make sure you check those out. Okay, with that, we are going to go ahead and wrap up. In addition to today's webinar, we have a lot of informative webinars that are coming up. So please go to www.netcomlearning.com/webinars/ to register for any of those. We want to thank you all for joining us today. If you do come up with any additional questions, please feel free to send them to us at webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. And we hope that you all found today's webinar to be informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us very soon. And once again, thank you for joining us. Also, feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great Saturday, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.